That's what I get for not checking everything before I go live. It's like this giant checklist every time. It's like, is this there? Is this there? Is this there? It's really easy to miss something, especially if you move stuff around. Cool. All right, I think we're good to go. The stuff that I wanted to do today is Rust language workshop stuff. So we started working on this document, which is already 9 pages, and it's really just outlines. So it is going to be kind of tough to bring this down into an appropriate scope. Here's where we are right now. We kind of have a set of, I don't want to say 3 videos, but the first 2 here are going to kind of be self-contained. So it's going to be like a why Rust, what is Rust, like kind of video for people who are kind of like unfamiliar with Rust, not sure if they want to use it, like don't really know anything about it, like that kind of thing. And then for anybody whose interest is piqued or who is like, hey, I've heard about Rust, I want to learn a little bit more about it. Maybe I want to write it, whatever. We've got this like Rust in like less than 30 minutes video, which we haven't really titled. That's going to cover kind of a bunch of stuff here. We've got a bunch of outline, a bunch of like concepts that are kind of important. I've started marking things out as headlines and kind of like reorganizing things and whatnot. And then after that, where am I in my list here? After that is going to become like an introduction to the Rust language. So a little bit more of a deep dive. So the less than 30 minutes, if we start looking at kind of the amount of topics we have here, we've got to fit, here's our introduction, right? So why Rust is kind of like this section up here. Introduction to Rust starts off with like installing Rust and stuff like that. So this is going to take, I don't know, like 5 minutes of time, let's say. And then we've got scaffolding a new project. So 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll call it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 or 12 headings. So let's cut it down to 10. So we've got 11 total. Of the intro is probably going to take 5 minutes. The rest of the content, then, if there are 10 headings, gets about 2 minutes each, which is not a lot of time. Hey, haven't caught one of your streams in a while of your Bevy content, though? Great. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, the weekly Bevy videos are super great. And then we do a bunch of the... I want to do more specific Bevy videos, but I don't know. I always want to produce more, so wrote a couple of posts fairly recently that I was pretty happy with, even though they were like a little bit more casual than usual. Got the Substance Designer post and the Bevy Observer Filters post. Neither of these feel like they fit anywhere else. I kind of put stuff on my personal site that like isn't necessarily fully polished, like stuff that goes on Rust Adventure, for example, is like well polished stuff that I've had multiple conversations with people about. Like the material has been studied and evolved. This is just kind of like, oh, I spent, you know, a week surveying like 5+ different texture compression tools, such that I could make a recommendation at the bottom with a little bit of explanation and be like, hey, if you have a bunch of textures, you want to compress them, go use this tool, Cram, use one of these algorithms, BC7, 5, or 4, with these settings, which are not that deep because I chose a tool that made them not that deep. If you know what I mean, like there are tools where you have to specify like the input format and the output format and a bunch of settings and just kind of like to kickstart people. But this is like significantly less, I guess, polished is the way that I would put it. And then this one is very much like I saw somebody or two people having a conversation in the Bevy Discord about the observer filters, like this on event filter kind of pattern. I think I have it all the way down at the bottom of the post here. It's like on event, like filter by component pattern. And it doesn't work the way that people usually expect it to work. So this whole post is just kind of like a dive into why that is and how to get it to do what you actually think it's supposed to do. Which is also like mildly advanced content, I guess. It's not really like polished pedagogical material. It's just like stuff that I'm doing that I think people would find useful. Hey, Saba. Yeah, it's been a week of lives. I don't know. I just felt like going live, and I just keep feeling like going live for the moment. So we're still live. Is Bevy good for doing warehouse simulation? You mean like for an actual warehouse or for like a simulation game? Or there's a bunch of people doing like real world analysis. Do I remember how to spell this company's name? Bevy Foresight. Yeah, Foresight Spatial Labs. They do a bunch of really interesting stuff. Where's their website? There's their website. They do a bunch of really interesting stuff. It's not like warehouse simulation, but it's like real world data that you do stuff with. That uses a bunch of Bevy ECS for various things. So I would hesitantly say yes, but with the understanding that I don't really know what you're asking necessarily. I don't know if you're asking about a game or if you're asking about like real world warehouse simulation. Bevy ECS is pretty sweet for dealing with data, and the Bevy like how do we say it? Like the frame update mechanisms, like the ECS itself. It's pretty sweet for like querying that data, doing something with it, and then like having more stuff happen repeatedly. So I would say yes, but yeah, with caveats. Hey, Anders, how's it going? Good morning, Tom. How are you? So this video, if this video is gonna be under half an hour, we were just talking about how much time that's actually gonna take and how much time each section has. And it's like 2 minutes per topic. Would I still recommend Dioxis? I don't know that I've ever really strongly recommended Dioxis personally. There's nothing inherently wrong with Dioxis. But I think that there is how do I say this? If you're going to target just the web, I'm going to recommend you Leptos. If you're going to target a mobile application, I am either going to recommend you Bevy for a game or probably Swift or Java or React Native for the UI. You can do Rust for shared libraries and stuff like that, but integrating directly with the expectations of a mobile platform is fairly important. And I'm not convinced that something like Dioxis currently handles that. So I would say if you're going to do UI stuff on mobile, I would push you towards either native stuff or something like React Native that takes advantage of the native stuff. If you're going to do web, I would push you towards Leptos, which leaves Dioxis kind of in my mind on like the desktop, which is cool. And there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but there's also Tori, and the pattern of using something like Electron, but cut down a little bit, is really well tread. So for a production application, it's really tough to recommend like not Tori for something. Yeah, if you're just doing web stuff, Leptos for sure, because it's web focused, it's web dedicated. You don't have to like one of the issues with multi-platform toolkits is they are multi-platform and thus have to care about many things. Similar to the way in which you like if you use an ORM, you might not access features of your database that are specific to like Postgres or MySQL or whatever, right? Because you're using this like intermediary layer to talk to the database. Same kind of thing. Like if you're using a multi-platform framework, it has to care about multi-platform. And if you're not multi-platform, if you're building a website specifically, then working with the web APIs is probably what you want to be doing. Again, nothing against Dioxys at all. But I think I don't have a lot of use cases for like one application that can be everywhere. You know, I don't have like an app that needs to run on like mobile and desktop and web all with the same code base. I feel like those UIs are very different and require different concerns. So I don't know. If you like Dioxys, definitely like it's cool for sure. Bevy seems to have pretty strong appeal for engineering usage for CAD, etc. Some of the funding was from users of that sort. Gyroflow is another cool project I think that uses Bevy. Yeah. After spending a month coding my first real project in Rust using Leptos, getting into so many confusing rabbit holes on why some code works the way it does, it's refreshing to see a Rust live stream. Yeah. This is just, we're just doing Rust today. Although, I did just update my computer. So I got rid of a bunch of stuff. This is the demo from the 2D visibility mesh. Also, people on stream have been seeing me kind of struggle with my window manager over the last week. I think that was entirely because I was on the previous major version of Mac OS. I haven't had any issues since I updated, which was only this morning. But this is the 2D visibility mesh we've been building last week with a couple optimizations. Which is very cool. The one thing that I'm really confused about actually is you see this rhombus over here somehow has a line straight up the middle. And if I think I still have the wireframes. Yeah, if I open the wireframes, there's no line in the middle of this rhombus. So I really have no idea why this is colliding in the middle of that rhombus. That's the next task for the 2D mesh later. There is a current problem with perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical lines here too. So this is perfectly horizontal on the bottom of this rectangle with two vertices that line up with the player. And that will, I think that's an ordering issue, but TBD. I haven't figured that one out yet either. But the one I'm more concerned about is this rhombus over here, like just has random internal edges, and I don't know why that is. But yeah, Rust stuff. For web, you're using Actix and Next.js. Yeah, I think that my general web stack is Axum and Leptos. But it's very similar to the stack that would be like Express and Next or something like that. You think Rust is like your 15th programming language or something. Took you longer than usual to pick it up, but it was the first language you loved while you sucked with it. Yeah, I really like Rust. Rust is actually, there's a Y Rust up here. This is the segment that I'm putting into the beginning of the video for like why Rust, and it's basically like I think Rust is a uniquely positioned language. It is kind of not inherently about the language in particular, right? Like the things that people really like about Rust, like memory safety, et cetera, whatever, they're all cool and good and everything. But Rust and all of the things that make Rust what it is, make it a language that can kind of take you wherever you want to go as a programmer. If you want to write web front-end code, you can write web front-end code with Rust and Leptos. If you want to write an operating system kernel, you can write an operating system kernel in Rust. If you want to write networking stacks, if you want to write games, if you want to like share logic across mobile devices, if you want to embed something inside of a Python library, if you want to expose something to a JavaScript application, like if you want to write Rust on a microcontroller, like all of this stuff is like within the domain of Rust, like realistically. And like I know that there are things where like you can write Python that runs on like a microbit or something, right? But like really what that's doing is calling out to C at some point. And I think that one of the really unique traits of Rust is that when you start doing these kinds of things that are either really low level or really high level, you're still writing Rust. You don't have to really worry about that cross-language boundary in the same way. Like it's not a different version of Rust that you're writing. It's just still Rust. So it can kind of take you wherever you want to go in that sense. It's one of the same things that I think Node.js did for a lot of JavaScript people back in 2012. Right? Like a bunch of people were writing JavaScript, doing front-end stuff, and then Node comes along, and suddenly all of those people who know how to write JavaScript can write CLI tools and servers and all these other kinds of applications. I think that Rust does that for kind of programming in general, whereas Node did it for people who know JavaScript at that time. So that's what's going in these paragraphs. Your first tried it during 1.0 and it didn't appeal to you, but 3-ish years ago, Tokyo and async really warmed your concurrency loving heart. Yeah. I think I would say that I didn't really commit to Rust until the 2018 edition, which is when async await stabilized. I was working with it a little bit before that, but 2018 was really like, okay, cool. This is a language that I can set my next decade learning this language and working with it and et cetera, et cetera. I'm fairly confident that there will be like a next language. There always kind of is, but I don't think that one will come around for a while right now. Right. And even if it does, it'll take the same like ramp up time that Rust took. So if you consider the ramp up time from like, I don't know, 2012 or whenever Gradenhor was working on it, like pre-Mozilla, right? To now is kind of like a little over a decade. So if something comes along that is better than Rust, it will still take a decade to get to where Rust is right now. If it takes any shorter than that, I'll be surprised, but but like for me, Rust is a language for the next 10 years for sure. Or run the cheapest lambdas with Axum in AWS. Yeah, Rust for serverless is fantastic. I think that when people talk about serverless and they talk about like cold start times and they talk about like problems that people have with serverless, like Rust cold start times are like 25 milliseconds. Like the overhead on a Rust Lambda is low. The overhead on something that is like really well packaged, like really big, like a Java or like even JavaScript, right, can start to take hundreds of milliseconds to boot. So like cold starting in 25 milliseconds with a Rust Lambda is like, in my mind, the way that you should be writing serverless functions, because otherwise you're kind of just giving money to AWS, or, you know, if you're paying one of the higher level providers like Vercel or something, you're paying like the 5 to 10x markup on serverless costs. So like, why not just write Rust and ship it to Lambda and like get performance, get cheap, get all these other things. And Cargo, what a tool. It's always been a Linux person, and you can actually feel sane writing Rust on Windows. Yeah. Like Rust working on Windows is incredible, right? People put a lot of work into that. And Cargo, like part of what makes Rust what it is like Cargo as well, right? If Cargo didn't exist, Rust would be a significantly worse experience in general. Some people saying Zig or Odin as like the next great language, or like the next kind of like thing that can be really enabling. I don't think you would write Zig on the front end. I think Zig is like if you really like writing C and you want a modern version of writing C, that can be Zig. But giving up all of like the safety guarantees of Rust, giving up the type system and stuff, and giving up a lot of like what makes Rust what it is a big ask. And Rust can run in so many places. It's hard to think of Zig as a successor to that. Like I can give Rust to a JavaScript developer and they can write Rust, right? Like if I give C to a JavaScript developer, like, I don't know. The old adage is like nobody really ends up knowing how to write C, but I don't write C, so I don't want to, harsh on any languages. Like we don't do language bashing on this stream. But like C is hard to write, and it's hard to write correctly, and it's hard to like keep all the rules set in your head for everything that needs to happen. And then like when I do code review for Rust, I feel very confident that I'm doing code review that means something, that I'm not missing a huge gap. It's shockingly fast on the lowest possible setting. So joke it's 10 times more effective. You're talking production lambdas. Yes, Rust in production lambdas is fantastic. Absolutely. Nim has had a long time and hasn't reached anything. So I would be surprised if Nim suddenly gained adoption. Every time you go to a different language and see null, nil, none, undefined, you're like, where are you at, Rust? You feel like the only reason you loved C is because you were writing on and for Linux? Yeah, reasonable. I mean, like, if you are somebody who liked hacking on the Linux kernel, then like C, obviously, right? Rust propaganda. I don't think that qualifies as propaganda, but so we need to write some stuff about installing and things like that. I think that my recommendation for installing is always to tell people to go to like directly to RustUp. I want to go to a screenshot of this page too. One of the interesting things that I did start doing, this doesn't have a dark mode, does it? My computer's already in dark mode, so this doesn't have a dark mode page. So we'll just keep the one screenshot with the URL. And I really want to get rid of that little drop down. Let's put this on this other desktop for now, since we're doing some Rusty stuff. Right. Even user space. The kernel is just a nice C library. Yeah, I mean, that's totally reasonable, right? Again, I'm very much a person that like has used many languages over their career and understands that there will be more languages. I'm definitely not a person who's going to be like, Rust is the only thing you should ever write forever. Rust is great right now, probably for the next 10 years. You can use it for a lot of things. It's good at a lot of things. It's pretty nice to write. It's got good tooling. There aren't many other choices that I would make for a language right now for a lot of things. But I'm not naive enough to think that it is the like ultimate language by any means. The Rust Up is how you manage Rust versions. Do we want to say Rust versions? It's really like the Rust and the entire tool chain, right? Like it's the Rust Up is not just how you manage Rust versions, but it's how you manage installed Rust versions and their associated, what do we call it? Like tool, it's not just tool chain. It's like, I feel like if I say tool chain, people like think about the compiler, but it's not really just like the compiler and whatever. It's the supporting tools that come with it, right? It's like RustDoc. Like, is RustDoc part of the tool chain? Kinda. Is YouTube having an issue right now? My notifications tell me that YouTube is having an issue. Are y'all good on the stream? You're pretty much on that same 10-year language perspective. Though you recommend it as third or fourth language for a newer dev at the moment, not discouraged from using it as first. Yeah. I mean, it depends on your domain, right? If you're doing something specific and there's a language that's used for that thing, then learning that language first could make a lot of sense, right? If you're doing front-end web dev right now, learning JavaScript makes the most sense, right? I wouldn't tell somebody who is like, I really want to do UI work, that they should learn Rust to do UI work first. They can. It works. I do it all the time. But if you're going to get a job as a React developer, you're not going to be writing Rust. I think it's more about language philosophy rather than language syntax and capabilities. Rust has a unique philosophy that is different from Java, C++, etc. Yeah, I mean, most languages have different philosophies, right? That's kind of like the reason for multiple languages existing, right? If they didn't have different philosophies, they would all be the same language. Let me see. We're only at a 5% dropped frame rate right now, so if that goes up, I will check. Yeah, you recommend JavaScript or Python for new devs, and the caveat that whatever they are interested in is best. Yes. I mean, the most important thing, like if you're going to ask me how to learn programming, I'm going to tell you, do whatever keeps you interested tomorrow. Because literally the only thing that matters is that you're still interested in doing it tomorrow, right? It doesn't matter if it's Rust or JavaScript or Python, whatever. You can always figure out, like, you'll always learn another language at some point, and you can always decide to learn another language whenever you want. So if you're interested in programming and you're using like Unity or something, like C# could be a really good option, right? I forget what Godot's is. Do they have their own scripting language? Can't remember off the top of my head. But like if you've got a domain that you're working in and they use a primary language, like it's totally valid to just like that be your first language, right? Most missed feature of Rust whenever you're forced to use another language is the error management when result in option, it being a core of Rust. Yes, that is mentioned so many times in this document. I think this is the chapters for the full thing. I don't know. Each of these headings for this like 30-minute video, like I said before, is going to have like 2 minutes max, and 2 minutes is not a lot of time. So we're going to have to go pretty quickly on these things. I'm going to write out like maybe a paragraph or two, maybe a little bit more code example for each, but like I think giving them a full treatment is a responsibility of like the next series. And this series down here, like this is a generics traits like section or video. This is an ownership section or video. So it can be like a 10-minute video, you know? Yeah, GDScript is domain specific with solid data implicitly teaches Python probably. Yeah, dynamic language stuff. You don't know if that's primary. You've seen Bevy, people use Bevy ECS with Godot somehow. Yeah, that's Godot Rust, right? No, Godot Rust is just Godot Rust. There's definitely been people who like Bevy ECS Godot though. Is this recent? Yeah, Bevy Godot 4. Bring Bevy ECS to Godot. I don't know if this is a good idea, just to be clear. I don't do a lot of Godot work, so I don't know what kind of impact this has on your like game. Godot Rust is a cool idea because it basically is like there's GD native or whatever, and then Rust is just like the language to talk to GD native. The Bevy Godot. I think I prefer the Godot Rust logo too. That's really funny though. The Godot Rust maintainer is awesome. Sweet. I actually don't know who that is off the top of my head. I didn't even check. Is that Yarwin? Jan Holler. I don't think I've met these people. It's possible though. I've been to Rust conferences and stuff. I don't think I've met them though. Where's that image that I took earlier? We need that image. Yada yada yada. Screenshot. Everything changed with the update to Mac OS whatever the hell I'm on. 26. Did they go from like 0.15 to 26 or something? It's really weird convention, but this is going to be Rust up. Are we using PNGs? I guess we're using PNGs. PNGs are fine. My plan here is to have effectively, like, it would be really cool if I could compile this to HTML and use it. That would be very cool. I am kind of, I know that the HTML output for Typist is semi there, so I'm not really expecting that to work, but I would like to just have this PDF available for people to download if they want to, so that people who prefer to, you know, read on their iPad or whatever can grab it and, you know, just go through everything. So we'll need another figure here with our, I'm so Bevy Bevy adjacent. I named my assets folder assets. Maybe I should have a border on these images. Just the white on the white feels a little off. Does Typist have a border for figures? Figure, caption, table, scope, caption, kind, supplement, numbering, gap, outlined. I think outlined is what we want. This probably has to go, I think that's fine. Does that work? That did not work. Maybe I should read the docs instead of just trying to guess. Oh, whether the figure should appear in the outline. Yeah, that's not what we want. I could always come back in later and like add a border from Photoshop or whatever, which would also be totally fine. It's just a little weird. I think I'll just leave it for now. We'll just have like an image that looks a little bit broken, and I'll come back later and I'll fix images. Maybe I'll run them all through a process or something. I don't know. But this is not going to go like that. Rust up website. This is like Rust Playground. There's a little bit of intro that comes before here. There's installing Rust, and to install Rust, go to Rust Up. Rust Up being like, I don't want to write install instructions that are going to go out of date. So kicking people out to Rust Up to install Rust is, I feel like, always the right move, especially since with multi-platform like Rust Up tooling, you need special instructions to install on like Windows or Linux or whatever. Like you can use curl on many of them, but like if you need the .exe, then you need to go to the website to grab the exe. And Rust Up has detection for what operating system you're accessing it from. Do I have a terminal open? No, I don't want to take a tour of macOS Tahoe at the moment. Thank you. Where are my terminals? Do I not have a terminal open? I always have a terminal open. I don't. Oh no, there's a terminal. uh. Now I need to remember what I was going to do. Oh, right, Rust Up. If we just run Rust Up, we get probably a bunch of output. We can dump this into like a PB copy. Did that not work? That's not outputting on standard error, is it? That feels really strange. Okay, we're gonna skip the version because the version will make it like go out of date more or less. The details here are not terribly important. We just want to get like a vision here of what the output like should look like if you run Rust Up. Like here's what a successful run looks like. I guess they do call it the tool chain. I feel like people don't necessarily understand what a tool chain is though. So I really do want to like use different words, but also connect it. Like Rust Up is how you manage installed Rust versions and their associated tool chains. This includes they're not going to know what targets are yet. Cargo, Rust package manager. As well as the tools needed for compiling for different targets, like WASM. Now, I don't think I'm going to specify a specific WASM toolchain. I know WASM32 unknown unknown is like the toolchain that everybody really uses at the moment, but there's also WASM32-none. Is that what it is? WASM32 none? 32 v1 none, which is like no standard WASM, which is very, very cool. I think more people doing no standard is very, very cool because Bevy got support for no standard and WGPU is getting support for no standard. And like all these major, like big, hard to change projects are getting support for it. And part of the reason is this WASM 32 like none target. So this includes tools like Cargo, Rust Package Manager, as well as the tools needed for compiling for different targets like WASM, and formatting, linting, and documenting Rust code. I think that covers everything. Can Rust cross-compile from Mac OS from Windows or Linux easily? Or is there some funkiness in doing that? There's always funkiness in trying to target a different operating system. I don't cross-compile for Mac OS from Windows really ever. So I don't know that I really am up to date on that right now. I would have to look it up. I know that you can cross-compile to a number of different targets. Actually, one of the things that was really interesting, speaking of, people were mentioning Zig earlier, Cargo Lambda used to use Zig build under the hood. I think it still does. Yeah. It actually uses the Zig toolchain to cross-compile for AWS Lambda, which is really cool. And that uses Cargo Zig build under the hood, I think. There's also bigger projects, right? Like Cross does a number of things to do different kinds of support for different stuff. So yeah, I mean, it really depends on which platform you're targeting and which platform you're building on. For me, I always end up setting up GitHub Actions with a specific operating system and building for that operating system on that platform, right? If I'm gonna do a Windows release, I'm gonna build a Windows build on a GitHub action that has a Windows operating system. If I'm gonna do a Mac OS or a Linux release, same thing. So there is cross compilation. You can compile for different targets. There are caveats, but yeah. I think the biggest caveat is probably shared libraries like libc. You can use like muscle libc instead to statically compile, and that will give you more access to more targets. But like I said, that's caveats, right? Like, yes, cross compilation, but also, you know, with caveats. Having this code block stretched across a page boundary is really awkward. So we'll have to go through the book and make sure that this is always on its own page. And it's on your path, which I don't know. Should we include the $? Maybe not the $. I'm just going to say path. This isn't like an intro to Rust Up. So really running this command is just kind of like, oh yeah, it exists. It'll also give you, if you don't have any Rust installed and you install Rust Up and you try to do something that like needs additional toolchain, it will tell you and say, hey, you should install this. since this is the quick start, we could probably do a quick mention of WASM. Right. So like the absolute minimum. I have this somewhere. I don't remember where I put it, if I'm being honest. I was starting a WASM workshop at one point. But I don't remember what I called it or where I put it on my system, which is very, very helpful. I know. I didn't put it in the book, did I? I think I did, actually. No, I didn't. I'll have to find that again. I wonder if I pushed it up at all. See, repositories, find a repository, WASM. Nope, didn't push it up. That's unfortunate. I'll rewrite it, but it's got to be somewhere on my computer. I don't think I've cleared my temp directory out in ages. Let's see if it's here. Is it? It is. Oh, shit. I think this is it. Well, this is some of it anyway. I don't think this is all of it. But this is, I don't know if y'all have seen like the absolute minimum that you would need to build WASM is effectively this. So pub extern C function add takes two integers, or not integers, sorry, usizes, adds them together, right? Just a regular add function. Throw no mangle on it so it doesn't mangle the name of the function. And then we've got some tests here and whatever, but this piece of code is all you really need to write. And then there's an index.html. And if you build this with the wasm32 unknown target, that'll put the wasm file into target wasm32 unknown. And you can just pull that in and it will run. And here is our object after we've instantiated streaming on that wasm object. And you can run that function. I wonder if I could just do that right now. Let's do cargo build release wasm32 unknown. Right? No dependencies, so no build time. I think this should exist now. Release. No, wasm32 unknown release. It's in there. So this, let's do npx serve here, because I think this will just pull it in, and then we'll go to this random website, which is just that index.html file. And here's our addition and our logs. Here's the instance of the module that got pulled in from WASM, and here's the value of the return, so 6. So, you know, you talk about, is it possible to, you know, cross-compile or whatever? You want to build a WASM file? You want to use no dependencies? You want to just write some Rust? It just builds, right? And then you get a WASM file, and you throw that into the browser, and it just works, which is sick. I guess you can't see this because it's not big enough, but right. So we've got object obj. That's the thing we saw. Instance. It's got the exports. Here's our add function right here. Takes 2 arguments. This is the module, and this is the return value here. If we click on the code, it'll just show us. Yeah. So we're just logging out the return value of object instance exports add. So this calls into the WASM, gets the value out, which is just incredibly cool. Did Mac OS increase the... I think they changed the borders on everything. That's a different... That is a different corner than the one that I'm used to. Anyway. It's really cool that you can do that this just works. I don't remember. There we go. Rest up target install. Let's just include like with a version of Rust installed. We can add the... So the danger of this is I think it will tell you to install the stable toolchain, but I don't have a clean system to tell. So I'll have to like run Docker or something in a brand new, I don't know, Debian instance or whatever and see what RustUp does. So I'm going to like TK, check to make sure that Rust is actually installed, that you don't need to rust up, install stable or something like that, right? So with the new version of Rust install, we can add the wasm32 unknown. I don't know, maybe this is too much off the path. I'll think about it in a second after I'm done typing this. With a version of Rust installed, we can add the wasm32 unknown target. And we could use cargo to build a Rust library, we'll say. Because this is just going to be cargo build, right? I kind of just want to get the point across that you can literally just like cargo build and like your project, even with weird configuration, will build. Because I feel like that's something that not a lot, well, it's not that not a lot of other ecosystems have, but it's like something that I know that some other ecosystems don't have. Border radius is hella borked on the new version, I've heard. This is the new version, so if you think these border radii are borked, then that's it. I have a feeling somebody just made the decision and that this is the border radius now. Of course, it's Apple, so it'll eventually be cool, right? I'll get to use my 2008 border radius 75% everywhere and have it be cool. I want to mention this. How do I draw the line between these two things? Because it's kind of a jump ahead, but this is a quick start. So I think the jump is fine. I just need to draw the line correctly. Because otherwise it's like, why are we doing WASM stuff? Running RustUp will show a list of subcommands if you installed correctly and it's on your path. Let's say, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right place to do this. I feel like this is something worth talking about. I don't know if this is the right place for it. Maybe running cargo new. I don't want to imply that you can cargo new with a binary and then build for a WASM. I don't want to say easy. Building a Rust program is a matter of running cargo build. Okay, so let's do with a version of Rust installed. And we'll say, and its toolchain. With a version of Rust and its toolchain installed, building a Rust program is a matter of running cargo build. We wanted to target another platform like Wasm in the browser. Instead of our native system, we can add a new target. We can add the desired target. This is too many commas, isn't it? If we wanted to target another platform like Wasm in the browser instead of our native system, we can add the desired target using rustup. Here we'll use the wasm32 unknown target, since that is a common target to run in the browser. It will produce a .wasm file. And we could use cargo to build a Rust library into a Wasm file that runs in the browser. Let's not use release here because we haven't introduced that concept yet, but just to say, like, you can cargo build and it'll run on your local system, and cargo build target will build it for Wasm. Should you clarify first that by default it builds for targets your local system? I think I just did that, right? So running rustup will show a list of subcommands. So you've installed rustup. And then we get to, with a version of Rust and its toolchain installed, building a Rust program is a matter of running cargo build. I guess we could say that here. This will, by default, build for your local system. So if you're on Mac OS, it will build for the Mac OS target. If we wanted to target, I think the extra sentence is good. That's a good call out. I think the extra sentence draws that line better. Because I want to say you can build, and if you want to build for another platform, you can just say whatever. And then we'll move on. Because we're about to get into actually like cargo. And it's a debug build, right? Or some kind of non-release. Not sure if anyone cares yet. I think we're not going to talk about that yet. I think we're going to talk about that when we actually have code to compile, because we're going to use the factorial example to point out that a dev build can be slower than a release build. So I think we actually have to, at that point, to talk about release, we have to have scaffolded a Rust project, and we haven't done that yet. Hey Xavier, how's it going? So cargo is Rust package manager, but that's also underselling it a bit. If we run cargo, that runs us a bunch of commands. Maybe we pull this in too, since we just did it for the other one. Fancy install stream episode 2 when? We did that last stream. Did you miss it? Do you need a refresher? It's really easy these days. Really, really, really easy. Tracy Builds / Tracy Builds. Click on GitHub releases, download. You've got Linux, Mac, and Windows releases. You can thank Lon for that. Lon was in the stream when we were looking through the build scripts and everything, and they were like, "This is ridiculous. I'm just gonna go fix it," and they went and fixed it. And then PR changes to the Rust or the Bevy profiling docs even. Where's docs profiling? So now Tracy like even has a better little quick start in here and shows you how to do some things and like capture from the command line and stuff. Wonderful. Absolutely. Very happy with that. Yeah. What a legend. Like, so useful, right? See, as you know, I guess have a good time in your meetings, or, you know, will you share with this, we were Bevy curious, but nervous about Rust? Yeah, definitely. Let them come in. I will happily answer any of the questions and stuff. One thing that can be confusing is the amalgamation of debug and non-optimized. By default, the debug field is not optimized, but an optimized build with debug info is possible and useful. Not sure a beginner needs to know that. I think we cover that when it's necessary. Like a Bevy application tends to have a specific configuration, right? If we go to the Bevy flock, not the CLI, but either the 2D or the minimal. Let's see, Bevy new minimal. There we go. This is some random pull request, but and we go to the cargo toml. The cargo toml has that configuration that you're kind of talking about here, right? It enables an optimization level for third-party crates and a smaller optimization level for your own code. So I think that at some point, since this is a quick start video, I know you weren't here earlier, but I went through all the headings and calculated about how much time we have to talk about each topic in this video specifically. And we have about 2 minutes. So it's gonna be a wild ride. And a lot of the wild ride is going to be dedicated to some install stuff, so that people can like get it and know it and like know how it works. So I think we're gonna end up spending like 5 minutes on install, and then we have like 20-25 minutes left, and each topic is gonna get like 2 minutes out of that 20. Because I want it to be under 30 for sure. So the shorter we can make it, the better. And then we'll have the opportunity to go in deeper. So like, where's our release versus debug? We don't have any optimization actually in the language workshop right now. So this is the kind of full list of things that are going to get their own full videos, which is a lot here. There's a lot. We could do like something on profiles here. I don't know if this is a beginner topic, because most people won't care, but yeah. Yeah. I kind of like took what you were saying and kind of shifted it in like there's so many flags for stuff like that I don't know. I don't want to cover all of the flags, right? We could talk about including or excluding debug information. I think that makes sense in a dedicated video if we're going to talk about profiles and stuff. So if we have a video on like dev and release, then we can have a video on enabling optimizations like S versus Z. And like what you're saying too, like whether debug info is included or not included. Because we will mention the debug information very briefly. Because when you do a cargo build, it tells you, right? We're in something here, right? Cargo. Let's just build the visibility mesh since it's already built. And right at the top, we have a ton of warnings that I need to get rid of. This didn't build though. There we go. Actually, it's at the bottom. Sorry. We've got dev profile, optimized, and debug info, right? So we're going to briefly mention the first time we build that this is building with debug info, but we probably won't go into how to disable the debug info or how to include it in the release build. But it shows up in the output, so we have to mention it. Cargo. How much do we talk about cargo? I think this is going to be like a one slide or like a one thing, like cargo comes with a bunch of tools kind of situation. Because like I want to mention that there's Clippy and that there's Rust format and that there's Rust doc. What else do we actually have here? I guess Rust C, but like, It is less useful and safe for us, but code with optimizations can trigger a bug or undefined behavior it's needed. Yes. We also I'm considering microcontrollers to be kind of intermediate advanced, so definitely pushing that off till later. It doesn't it's not that cargo comes with it. It's like cargo is capable of calling out to a suite of the Rust toolchain tools that we installed with Rust up, as well as community maintained subcommands, right? Cargo is capable of calling out to a suite of Rust toolchain tools that we installed with Rust up, as well as community maintained subcommands. And then here's the output of just running cargo. The built-in subcommands include, I guess we put cargo before these. Maybe this is a table when it shows up in the actual output. I don't actually know how to do tables in Typist. Can we do tables in Typist? Table function. Kind of. Do we get to pull the data from somewhere? Can I throw this into a small CSV or something? Image, cylinder, header, empty volume parameters, height, outer radius, inner radius. That's just data. Oh, so it's just a list of all of the content. Okay. So we could theoretically throw in a table here like this, right? And then this is probably two things. So it's cargo subcommand, toolchain binary, toolchain something or other. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And this will be cargo Clippy and Clippy and cargo doc, or I guess format was the next one we had. Cargo doc and Rust doc, right? So theoretically that gives us a table, does it? We do. Cargo subcommand toolchain binary. This includes them all in the same thing. Why did that do that? What did I miss? Here's one box. Here's the math for the second box, and here's the image, right? So it's, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I don't need these. These might need paren, or actually to be. Does that give us the table we wanted? Cargo subcommand, toolchain binary, cool. And I'll worry about table formatting some other time. It's really just about getting the content in here. It's a little weird to write the content like this, but oh, this also didn't do what I wanted it to. Cargo subcommand, toolchain binary. Why is there 3? I only have 2 in the header, don't I? Or do we think the comma is causing a 3rd? Oh, I'm so silly. Yeah, no. I didn't realize it was in the layout. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I obviously haven't written a table in this. So we're gonna figure this out later. I don't really care about it all too much right now. I'll do some table formatting work off stream. What other like Rust tool chain? What is it? What do we call these? Binaries? Components? There we go. We call these components. So let's name this components. Rust C. Do we include Rust C? I guess we include Rust C because like people might not know, right? So cargo build in Rust C. Rust format. I'm not going to talk about the interesting thing that like RustUp does, where it like is only one binary that shells out to like all the other binaries by inspecting the name of the binary that you called, which is really cool. It's also kind of freaky. It's the same kind of thing that what is it? Core utils? No, BusyBox. BusyBox does the same thing, where it's like one binary, and depending on how you call that binary, like what you call the binary when you call it, it inspects that name and gives you a different program. Interesting that they call this Rust docs. So, oh, that is the Rust docs. Yeah. Okay. I don't know that we really need those. I think most people who are looking at this will have access to an internet connection. So I just want to cover the subcommands at the moment. Format Clippy. We could mention Miri. I feel like we'll just leave out Miri, honestly. I think we're gonna have an like an etc. here. Because there's no subcommand for Miri, right? Yeah, it's not even available for Apple Darwin. Sweet. We're not going to talk about Miri. See, so Clippy format doc build, right? Where's my cargo? Build Clippy format doc. This isn't like a list of all the subcommands because we kind of just did that in the section before it. I don't really want to be like, oh, the list of subcommands is this, but the some of the useful subcommands, a call out to components that were installed with Rust up include. So we're clear, like, this is not everything. This is just like some things. I guess we should have the purpose, honestly. Right? So like cargo build. Clippy lint. We're gonna end up I guess we just say build here. Maybe I'll have better words for it at some point. Cargo. Is this all Typist? You've heard about it, never seen it in action. Is it good? I love Typist. Typist is great. I don't have a full command over all the syntax or anything. I don't know these functions by rote memorization or anything. But Typist is fantastic. If you ever need to build a PDF, Typist is my number one suggestion. If you're going to build a web service that builds PDFs, Typist is my number one suggestion. Like, I don't know if you've tried to build PDFs before, but the tooling around PDFs historically has been horrid and painful and full of like, here, take this 5 gigabyte download of a bunch of different tools. Yeah, even if you just compare it to LaTeX, like the LaTeX, hey, install this and like this 10 gig folder of stuff, and then pick which one you want out of the configurations. Typist is so really nice, is what I'll say. If you're going to build PDFs, if you're going to do content like this, like I'm doing right now, highly suggest. Comes with so many things that are just so useful. Like this outline is not something I needed to build. It just comes with Typist, et cetera, et cetera. Same kind of things you would get with LaTeX. But there's also like a whole package management ecosystem. So I don't know. This one is, I guess, for showing poker cards in line in your PDF. I guess if I was going to write like a Bevy game book on how to build poker or something, or how to build solitaire, I could use this for graphics inside of that. That would be kind of cool. I'm using a couple packages for like code highlighting and stuff. But nothing too serious. Huge fan of Typist though. I've been following Typist since its original release. And they've only been getting better and better. More recently, they've been putting more effort into HTML export. And I'm actually hoping that I can start writing Typist for like my personal blog or for Rust Adventure content on the website. It has so many nice things that like Markdown doesn't have. It has like the ability to deal with bibliographies, for example. This is a format called Hayagriva. Actually, I could probably just bring that up. right? Bibliography management via effectively YAML files. So I could pull together everything in Zotero, which is what I use for a bunch of research. Right? So all my papers and everything and all the blog posts and everything that I read gets dumped into here. I can dump that into a Hayagriva document, pull that into anything that I build with Typist, and then use any of those links. And then I have sourced references for everything. And it like, anyway, I have a lot of good things to say about Typist. I have a video on Typist on the channel too. I don't know if it's still holds up. I think it does, but I haven't watched it in a while. So we'll do code examples after. See, I am not pronouncing an I though. Right? Like I know that I do get a lot of comments whenever I talk about it. But like I'm not pronouncing an I. Typist. Typest. I guess I could typest. But typest is like really weird, right? Like typest. Tipst. Like I would have to say tipst in English for that to work. Typest. Typest is weird. It feels weird in my mouth. It doesn't line up with any other word that I've said. Typist, right? I could say typist. That's an I. Typist. But typist is how I say it. They used to have a pronunciation guide in the README. I don't know if they still do, but I've looked at it before. Is it in here? Used to be in here. Docs. They move it. Yeah, tie is in typesetting, right? And pist as in hipster. So typist. Typister. I don't know. like it is tie, right? Because it's typist. Typesetting, right? Typesetting. I don't know. I like the combination here is I don't feel like I'm saying an I when I say it. Typist. Like if you were saying typist, oh, tuppist? Is that kind of how you say it? Like tuppist? The Y is more you like than I like. Tuppist. The Y, tuppist, typist. Is it just going to be like a clippable 30 seconds of me fucking up the word typist for on the internet forever? You think it's one syllable? Tipst? Tipst? I think it's two anyway, right? Tipst. Yeah, it would be two. That's still two. Tipst. Typest. It's still type. Like I know this is engaging content, right? Let's see. Typist. GitHub. The other problem is I never hear anybody else say it because I am always the one talking about it and I'm the only one on voice. Where was it in the docs? It's still two, but it's way closer to how you pronounce it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm correct. Oh, I'm not saying I'm not saying anything is wrong here either. I'm not trying to, you know, prove my pronunciation or whatever. I could very well just be saying it wrong. I just think it is Typest. Typest? Typest is so weird though. Like I'm going to use Typest to build my PDF. I feel like if I say Typest, nobody's going to know how to like write it. Like they're not going to get the letters correct. Because it's like, because that's Typest. Like TYPESD. If you care, I sent a Discord message. I will check it out later. I actually do care. I generally care about pronunciation. If I fuck up pronunciation in my videos, it's because I fucked it up and not because I'm being an ass. So if anybody ever sees me, like I've definitely fucked up people's names before. I try not to. I try to do my research, but some people I just can't find and I don't know how to pronounce. And if I fuck it up, you can always reach out to me and let me know. A lot of people coming from some language cannot pronounce easily a syllable that doesn't begin with a vowel and automatically insert an E at the beginning. Anyway, pronunciation is difficult. Yeah. Yeah. One day I'll take a pronunciation class or something. I probably won't, but. Okay, so cargo commands. So this gets you through installation. It tells you about Rust Playground, tells you about Rust Up, tells you about like what happens when you install, how to check if you've installed it, the command that is used to build. Maybe we expand this cargo build out into a bigger example. We build a WASM file here. We're not really talking about any specific piece of code, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. Talk a little bit about cargo here. The package manager thing is really important. I think just calling cargo a package manager is really underselling it. It can call out to any of the Rust tools like build Clippy for linting, format for auto formatter, cargo doc for building documentation. I think Rust Analyzer is also worth a mention here. There was something else I blanked on what I wanted to say though. There's a piece of cargo that I want to say, but I don't remember what exactly it was. Oh, right. Community subcommands. Maybe I call cargo edit. Let's go crates. Cargo edit is one. I don't know that cargo edit is really what I want to use. Let's see, lib.rs. Oh, thanks, Cloudflare, blocking me from the internet every day. There's like a subcommands cargo plugins. There we go. Can we sort these by sorted by best cargo metadata? Cargo hack. What's a reasonable one? Cargo release could be, but cargo publish already exists and I don't want to confuse people. Cargo edit is like around and pretty stable, but cargo generate is a pretty good solid option. You're called Xavier in a lot of countries. Yeah. I think I might have Like Xavier is a name that I've had experience with before you came into like stream chat and stuff. So I think I went with Xavier because of that experience, but I could definitely imagine somebody having called you Xavier. Cargo instruments, cargo get. Cargo outdated is another one. Cargo outdated might be a good one, actually. Flame graph, another option. Cargo generate. I think cargo generate actually is a really good one, honestly. Cargo generate is the one that I think I'm going to go with. It's a good suggestion. Right. I have to mention one. I've got to point it at something. Cargo generate is pretty solid in that respect. I can point people just to the crates.io. These can be installed with cargo install directly from the package registry. This is the introduction of crates.io, which I think we should probably have a link for. One example is cargo generate, which probably also a link. Which is a, what do we call this? Is a more sophisticated package scaffolding tool. Because cargo new exists, right? That's the only other issue with this. It's like cargo new exists. Why would you use cargo generate? Obviously we all know because like y'all, most of you in the chat that are talking right now are right Rust. So you know the difference between cargo generate and cargo new, but like a beginner is not going to know. So community subcommands, there are a wide array of community subcommands as well. Xfinity install with cargo. Let's get the link for crates.io before I forget and leave an empty link in the doc. One example is Cargo Generate, which is a more sophisticated package scaffolding tool than the built-in Cargo New. Yeah, it's pretty common for sure. And I do think having Cargo New as it is currently in Cargo as it exists is the right way to have Cargo New. And Cargo Generate being an external project is probably the best place for it, especially with like the way templating languages evolve and the way that things happen like that. I think having cargo generate external is probably a good place for it. Cargo install, cargo generate. They have bin install here, but do they have like a they don't use actual templates that can actually be called here. So either I need to create one and put it in the Rust adventure organization, or yeah, I think I'll do that. I think I'll leave myself a to-do here. I don't want to depend on like somebody else to maintain a template. Because if somebody just goes and actually does this, I do want it to like Rust Adventure slash Rust Quick Start or something, or like Rust Adventure slash Quick Start or something like that. Yeah, Cargo New just gives you a minimal Rust crate setup, and Cargo Generate gives you a whole ass template. Absolutely. I don't know what this will do. It'll probably just be an Easter egg for anybody that happens to like actually do it. So I might change the repo name to something that's a little bit more out of the way, but then we can use it to grab a template from the Rust Adventure GitHub org. You still think cargo sweep is a pretty decent, awesome option. It's a recursive cargo clean, but with the option to only remove artifacts of old compiler versions. That's interesting. I don't use cargo sweep. I use Condo. One of the things that I don't want to do is kind of bias people towards thinking that like the size of the target directory is bad or something like that. Right? Like if in the introductory content, I say, oh, and here's how to clean up your target directory. That does feel a little bit weird. I think scaffolding with cargo generate is much more reasonable because it's like, oh, obviously there would be another tool for richer templating. Yeah. I just run Condo from the root of my which is cool because this person hangs out and does bevy stuff. I've actually never used the GUI, if I'm being honest. I always just run it on the CLI. That's pretty cool though. Counterpoint, that bias happens automatically when people's disks run full. A surprising amount of users run Rust on 128 gig and 250 gig disks. Yes. But that is not affecting a bias. That is something that somebody actually runs into, right? There's a difference there. If you're running Rust on constrained hardware or underpowered hardware or something like that, you will have the experience that you need to clean a target directory more often, right? Or you will be able to maintain working on different projects, fewer projects, right? But you don't, in the same way that you don't need to tell somebody a language is hard to learn before they try to learn it, you don't need to tell somebody that like they need to manually maintain their target directory, because most people won't. And like telling them that they are going to have to, and then them realizing later that they don't really have to, is not really a positive. So yeah. Cargo generate Rust adventure quick start. Cool. Rust analyzer. Careful about Condo. When you usually checked it out, it was very aggressive, potentially hitting files you don't want deleted. Like what? I've been using it for literally years. So, what are you talking about? I'm also not suggesting Condo in this doc, so neither Cargo Sweep nor Condo are making the list at the moment. What are we talking about here? We're doing Rust Analyzer documentation. They won't really have to. Yes, they will, as will you. Rust doesn't automatically clean up, so you will at some point run into this even with 10 terabyte disks. Yeah, you'll have to clean stuff, especially if you switch Rust versions and things. But we're talking about like 5 paragraphs into intro material. We're not talking about I don't know, modern best practices for maintaining Rust projects with a lot of branch switching, you know? Like they will have to run cargo clean. Absolutely. At some point. They don't necessarily need to install a third-party dependency to specifically clean up target directories. Right? I'm not arguing against cargo clean. I'm saying that the installation of a that audio on my laptop is on. Can we get this a little bit bigger? Yeah, there we go. Let's use the bigger version. Right, like they'll have to run cargo clean at some point. Where's Figya? See what's new in macOS Tahoe. No thanks. I'm good. get this in here. Remember how to type figure. What screenshot tool am I using? Is that Hyperland? No, I'm on a Mac, so it's not Hyperland. It is CleanShot. Where's Rust Analyzer? Here's Rust Analyzer. Hang on. Show you CleanShot in a second. Rust Analyzer. CleanShot. I held off on like using third-party tools for screenshots for so long. And then this year, basically, I saw somebody using CleanShot, and I think CleanShot actually improves the status quo of actually taking screenshots and screen recordings on macOS. But yeah, CleanShot is solid on macOS. That's what I use currently. Honestly, you just wish Rust Up had Cargo Sweep built in and runs by default after an update. If I was to mention it to someone, that would be what I would frame it as a good post-update practice. But you're right. That's not for this early in the intro. Yeah. I don't know why Rust doesn't do automatic cleaning or anything like that. I don't have any real context into why that doesn't happen currently. It would be very cool if it did. I also, though, like, thinking about it, I get annoyed every time Homebrew does something automatically. I don't know that I want Cargo or Rust Up to automatically handle it. Because every time I run Homebrew install something and it's like cleaning up 32,000 other packages, it's really frustrating. Unrelated, but sometimes your Rust Analyzer, launched by NeoVim LSP, runs for a long time, blocking the build there, and consumes 16 gigs of RAM, but it's quite rare. Interesting. That sounds like a little bit of a bug. Do you have your LSP or Rust Analyzer set up to build in a different subdirectory of target? I think I have mine here that I can just open up. Settings, JSON, Rust Analyzer. Here's my target directory config. So in any Rust project that I'm working in right now, it's Rust Analyzer, Cargo, extra args, and then adds target dir, target analyzer. So I have an analyzer directory inside of target, and that's where Rust Analyzer does all its work. And it now never conflicts with Cargo check or whatever else I'm doing, which is great. This could be a thing to bring up, actually. Where's Rust Analyzer going to be? This is up here. This is... I'll put this next to this, because we're not really going to talk about specific IDE configuration, but gathering a couple of Rust Analyzer best practices and throwing that in a doc somewhere might be a good idea. Because you asked earlier, Condo removes VM and .tox directories for Python. As someone who knows how hard Python libraries can be to install, yeah, okay, that's not great. VM and .tox removal. Oh, by default? I mean, I don't write that much Python, right? So that would be why I didn't notice that. Oh, the other thing is that it always asks every time. At this point, I just hit A. But Oh, I didn't know it had a timestamp either. That's cool. Rust Analyzer and VS Code does that by default. You believe in Target Rust Analyzer, but you'd have to verify. If you verify that, let me know. I don't think that's true by default, but I guess it's possible. It also removes build for Unreal projects, which are the docs files needed for building the engine or game, including files necessary for creating platform-specific builds. Yeah, so so those are like actual project files, not just build artifacts. Yeah, that's good to know. I really only use it on, I would probably say, Rust and JavaScript projects, for which it deleting like node modules and target is the behavior that I actually want. How many pages are we at? 12 pages? We wrote 5 pages today. They can be, as far as you know. Yeah. I don't do a lot of Unreal. Okay, we need to give a little bit of a rundown of like what Rust Analyzer is. I don't know anybody that uses Rust Analyzer on the CLI. The binary. I guess you have to have something running the LSP protocol. Otherwise, Rust Analyzer doesn't do anything, and you would have to send like specially modified HTTP requests at it. I've actually never tried to use it without an editor. Rust Analyzer outside an IDE seems crazy, but I'm sure somebody somewhere does it. Yeah, I mean, like, it technically is a binary, but I think the issue with it is it's made to be an LSP, and that's a specific protocol, right? So you have to have a thing that is communicating with that binary over the protocol. So I'm pretty sure that the Rust Analyzer binary would either just be like a server or not something that you would have any real chance of using on the CLI. But do you understand why you don't particularly trust and even recommend against Condo? If the author doesn't consider that, you don't really trust them to not introduce issues for other projects. I see that. Yeah. I think that the stance of the project is basically like Condo removes everything. Like they consider themselves to be RMRF. And you don't want RMRF. You want something else. And you think that other people should also use something that isn't RMRF, which totally makes sense. That's a totally reasonable stance. I think I would have to find a different tool that did cross language like module removal if I wasn't using Conda. I don't think I would use Cargo Sweep. I think I would use something else that did a bunch of directories. what do we say here? We'll type check. I guess it also kind of lints. What do we say here? We'll just say check your Rust projects and offer, what do we call them? Actions? What does Rust Analyzer call them? The manual. Code assist. Diagnostics. I guess we call them diagnostics and code assists. Rust Analyzer has your IDE or editor of choice. We'll check your Rust programs. We're just going to say check your Rust programs and offer code assists. Rust Analyzer is a language server protocol implementation for Rust, which is to say that Rust Analyzer is how your IDE or editor of choice will check your Rust projects and offer code assists. Types, diagnostics, assists, and refactors. You think we should write them all out? Types, diagnostics, assists, and refactors. As in what provides your IDE, which is to say Rust Analyzer with type checking, diagnostics, code assists, and refactoring. I guess refactoring is a code assist as well, right? Rust Analyzer on the site doesn't say anything about refactoring, but I know that some of the go to definition, find all references, refactorings, and code completion. You have seriously considered creating a speech-to-text dictation extension for VS Code, but it seems like a lot of work and difficult to use. I don't know why that's sometimes the network just does that. I think if you're going to do speech-to-text for VS Code, there's established players in the market. Like, theoretically, you could build that yourself, but more likely you're going to install something that somebody else already built. Because people actually do require that to be able to do their jobs. So that exists as a thing that you can do, right? If you want to do it as a side project, cool. But if you're trying to use it as like an actual, like, where you are actually going to speech to text code, there's a number of like accessibility tools that do things like that you would look into. At least refactor rename is part of the protocol, you think? Yeah. I'm not really concerned with what is specifically part of the protocol. More in terms of like what it offers somebody, and if I can use a word that encapsulates everything, then that makes sense. Refactoring, I guess code completion is another one, right? That is to say, Rust Analyzer is what provides your IDE or editor of choice with type checking, diagnostics, code assists, code completions and more. We'll just name a couple of things here. I think this is reasonable. You just don't want to invite an unchecked microphone into my workspace. I could do that at some point. Part of the reasons that I have arthritis and fears one day it's going to become a problem. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna build it for that purpose, it's going to be a long project. There are tools that do things like that already. So if you wanted to like start using those now as practice, I would go get one of them rather than trying to build it yourself. Because if it was going to become an issue, you don't necessarily know when it's going to become an issue. And having practice using the things that already exist might also help stave that off a little bit more, right? Like you could go like 30-70 on speech to text and actually typing or stuff like that, rather than needing to switch over at some point and not knowing. But I know people who have used things like that and they've made it work. So that is definitely a thing. They didn't build the tools themselves. They went out and purchased the tools, but that is definitely a thing that exists. Rust Analyzer, go to yada, yada, yada. I feel like I want to take a couple of screenshots here for Rust stuff. But I don't know that it's going to matter, because if people haven't really seen Rust code yet, and they don't know what enums are, then saying things like inlay hints and fill match arms are like not super useful. I think that's cool. One neat trick Rust Analyzer has is converting a string of JSON into a reasonable Rust data type representation. TK image for JSON transformation. That's totally fair. Yeah. You know, I think if it's something you think is going to happen, maybe buying it and getting a little bit used to it. You can always do the speech to text as a side project on your own. You know, nobody's stopping you from doing that. But the point of doing speech to text is not to build speech to text. It's to continue to program whatever you wanted to program. So if you make it your project, you're going to be spending a lot of that time building that tool, compared to actually focusing on whatever you wanted to actually build. Okay, cool. So we got through all the installation in like 2 hours. Rust Playground, Rust Up, what Rust Up is, Cargo, what Cargo is, Cargo subcommands, Rust Analyzer, what Rust Analyzer does for you. And then now we're into the actual, like, here's Rust code. The Kickstarter new Rust project will use cargo new with either the bin or lib flags, which indicate whether the project will be a binary that can be executed or a library that will be included in another project. So once we do this, I think I'm going to include the flag. You don't need the flag, but I think I'm going to include the flag because differentiating between bin and lib here is something that I want to like set up for later. So if we do that, let's get out of Bevy examples and go into like temp, and we just do cargo new. We'll give it a name of the project. What are we going to call it? We'll just call it quick start. Right? Talon voice sounds familiar. Yeah. Let me make sure I run the actual command that I'm going to tell people to run. I feel like it's easy to like skip things and put like maybe, you know, an argument in the wrong place because you think it was the thing that it was supposed to be and it's not quite. So it's always good to actually execute anything that goes into pedagogical content like this and not just assume that you know. Because it's like, yeah, I do know, but I could have mistyped something. Cargo new. That was a weird. Cargo new. Scaffolds. 2 files. Cargo.toml. And main.rs. The file layout is as such. Main.rs is the default entry point for a binary crate. We're not really explaining what a crate is here. I think we're going to leave the explanation of like crates and packages and workspaces to later. But we'll use the right words for these things regardless. I think that there's a lot of pedagogical material that treats the reader as if they won't be able to understand anything through context clues. And I think like if I call this a binary crate, then like people will figure that out. Like they won't have a complete understanding of it, Scaffolds is an odd word, you feel? Why do you feel scaffolds is odd? Just because if I replace it here, I'll probably replace it in a bunch of other places. Because, like, are you creating a project? A project isn't a thing, right? You would create a package, but really, you're creating the files that define a package. I guess creating a... What did I say? Scaffold. Where's scaffold? Name or a package, yada yada. You think just in the heading, then? Creating a new Rust project? We'll go with create. I can get behind create. You think you just never heard anyone say scaffolds as a term for creating files? Really? That's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. I think that's a piece of like domain jargon that I just had in my head that might not apply. So that's a really good call out, actually, because I've definitely seen people use scaffold for this. But the idea that some people might not pick up on that, or like, yeah, that's just like a new word to them. I think create is going to be, everybody's going to know what create means. If not everybody knows what scaffold means, then create is a better word. Main.rs is the default entry point for a binary crate. We could change it or use a different location. Like source bin, which supports multiple binaries. Multiple binary files? No. Multiple entry points. Do we do cargo new and cargo new lib at the same time? Is that like, since this is a quick start, do we say like, hey, this is the main.rs and this is the lib.rs? I mean, I understand how it fits. It makes sense to me. I also know my interest in language and especially etymology made me pick on this kind of thing fairly quickly. I think you're right. There's, like I was saying before, if scaffolding hits even 70% of people and create hits like 95% of people, then create is the better word to use here. So absolutely no qualms about that. And I actually appreciate you bringing it up. It's not rare that I'm hearing a word for the first time in company and immediately explain it to others. Okay. This kind of thing is something that I go back and forth on. How much extra context is too much extra context? Because right now, all we're basically saying is like, hey, run cargo new, get a project. You're probably not building a library yet. Maybe we just leave libraries for later. But this is kind of like a quick start. So I think we might just explain both. It might be too confusing to do both, though. Let's continue with the binary for now. Oh, I have to click into it. Is all. I don't know why that is. That's RA, not the output. Oh, did I just have it scrolled up? I am running watch right now. I don't know if there's a setting for having this update automatically. It was the output. I don't know. I think I missed it. Okay. So main.rs is the default entry point for a binary crate. We could change it or use a different location like source bin. You first thought it's the output, then it's the RA docs, and then yeah, fair. Multiple entry points, which results in multiple binaries. I don't know that this is clear. I don't know that it's particularly necessary to say at this point. Let's expand like this. Let's say a Rust package can contain multiple binaries, binary entry points. Often these extra binaries are in a different location like source bin, which uses the file name as the binary name by default. Cats. Do we do cargo first, or I think we do main first? Right. Very, very hello world. Is this going to be 2 or 3 main.rs? This is creating a new Rust project. This is going to be 3 then. Source main.rs where our binary the code that will execute when we cargo run lives. This must have a main function. I think that's true, except in esoteric use cases for no main. I don't think that matters currently, though, the distinction. I don't think we need to care about saying both things. So this must have a main function. Will execute when our binary does. Oh, it syncs scroll? Really? Is it an active extension? Let's see, TinyMist typist types. Oh, good. It stuck AI into my typist preview. I'm good. That's disappointing. Source main.rs is where the code that will execute when we cargo run lives. This must have a main function, which will execute when our binary does. Yeah, apparently it's not maintained anymore. I just saw that. The thing they suggest is like stuffed with AI in some way that I didn't care to look into. In this case, we use a macro print line to print out to the console. And run with cargo run. Usually what I do for these is I make the route just like this, so that people don't have to stare at my file paths. Cargo run combines cargo check, cargo build, which means when we run, what about Windows people that never saw or used a console? That's a great question. This is, I will say, this is not a document for people who have never programmed before. This is for people who have written at least one other language. It is very possible that those people have not used a terminal. I know that there are people who know JavaScript that really don't use terminals all that often and try to rely on VS Code for everything. I think for now, my answer is if you are a person that doesn't use the terminal, then you will have to figure out VS Code on your own. I've given you all the information here that you would need to look up, like Rust Analyzer and such. Failed the entrance exam. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would like to make things that kind of support this stuff. But I don't. I can make a note of it for later. Let's see. Can I throw this all the way down here? What about new terminal users? Because that's a good question. I feel like I am going to do something for people who have never programmed before. And people who have never programmed before might also include people who have never terminaled before and stuff like that. Etc. I don't know. We're also kind of skipping the install and basically forking it off on RustUp. I feel like I would like to help people who need that help, but it might be a separate thing, right? Like I might write up a document about how to do that or how to deal with that, and then point people to that from here. Yeah, I'll look into TinyMist later. The LLM thing being like, 2 paragraphs into the README or whatever it was very like, why are you mentioning LLMs at all? This is a typist compilation extension. What could you possibly need to prompt an LLM for? I also don't want it to like install an LLM or something. So anyway. So cargo run combines cargo check and cargo build and then runs the binary. Which means and then we're going to mention some profiling stuff a little bit here too. Yeah, you're writing an issue for that right now. The text flow says you could find solutions by text search in the docs or ask LLMs when plugging the docs. Okay. Yeah, which is clearly just like not a thing you need to include in documentation for a thing that's unrelated. Agreed. Glad you're writing an issue for that. There have been multiple people, by the way, who have been excited about the Tracy stuff. So thank you again for that. Somebody came in earlier and was like, oh, are we doing Tracy install Stream V2? And I was like, it's done. Lon did this all for us. Okay, so we can run the program with cargo run. Some notable information in the output here is that we built with the dev profile, which is unoptimized and includes debug info. Trying to make these like code snippets so that it's like pretty clear that I'm directly referencing that line that says finished. By default, Rust programs compile with the dev profile. Which in many cases will run slower. Well, in many cases, which to enable a release build with optimizations, use the release flag. Rust Cargo is actually the reason you learned to use the terminal at last. Back when you were writing C++, you relied so much on Visual Studio, you didn't even fully realize what the compiler does. That's really cool. Did you find yourself having much trouble when you started? Like, how did you learn how to use the terminal? Presumably you went to like Rust Up and you copied either the curl command or something like that. And then like, I'm curious as to how you like navigated that. It's been, I think, more than a decade since I learned how to use a terminal. Yeah, it's definitely been more than a decade. It's been a long time. It's hard for me to remember what it's like to like not know what the Mac OS terminal is like. Like, what is a path, or, you know, LS, like, does LS exist? Like LS and CD and etc. are all built into my muscle memory at this point. Release profile. Optimized. Can you clip your reaction to TinyMist for the issue? Yeah, feel free. Yeah, I think that's okay. Especially if they are kind of like a if they need the additional like, oh, why does this matter? Feels Quest, nice. Hey, how's it going? Something weird you spotted recently is that with debug variables, variable addresses end up further apart. You guess this is related to debug info. You don't think it matters, just surprised you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would make sense. I feel like until you dig into that kind of stuff, it's all kind of surprising, right? It's like, where do things even go? Like, what strings are in my binary? Cargo run combines cargo check with cargo build and then runs the built binary, which means that when we cargo run, we also get the built binary in our target directory. At either target debug quit start for release, right? Release, quick start. Depending on which profile it was built with. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Streaming a lot lately. Did like 5 stream days last week. Gearing up to kind of do the same this week. Feeling like I just want to put a bunch of time into Rust Adventure content and put stuff up and get stuff in. I also don't talk about Rust Adventure enough. So I was thinking a couple weeks ago and I was like, well, I should probably just like do this on stream sometimes. Because I do this off stream plenty. Once built, the binary can be executed directly. I don't think anybody's going to have to chmod this. I think the Rust handles all of that. Plus, you can crowdsource ideas at the cost of some distraction. There have been some really good ideas that come in. Some like I would have just left scaffolding in there, for example, from earlier. I would have. It's actually really nice to get feedback while I'm writing things, rather than having to write everything and then look through it again like a week later with fresh eyes and try to read it as if I'm reading it for the first time. It takes a while to build up the content and to do a review like that. So anything that can get pointed out while I'm writing it is a huge win. I don't think we need to say anything that like FN print line. Do we say anything about print line? We use we say it's a macro. I don't think it particularly macro, or I don't think it particularly macros. I don't think it particularly matters. Which is identifiable as a macro because of the exclamation point. I think this is just more commas, right? In this case, we use a macro, print line, which is identifiable as a macro because of the exclamation point. Maybe I bring this out into a separate. We know print line is a macro because of the exclamation point. Better. Streaming is fun. As Lon said, you get great input from people. You don't think you'll be able to get back to it for a while. Currently prepping next series. Nice. You're prepping more for the Rust language series that you're doing? Or is it a new series? Okay, I think we're good, good. Cool. We talked about release versus debug. We didn't do any release versus debug stuff. Do we need to prove that it's faster? Do we need to do the factorial? You know, like, is this critical demoing. How are we going to do? Last time I wrote factorial in Rust was never. We have a function for it, right? We don't have to actually do it ourselves. Arguably, you could use a lookup table. Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do. I don't really want to demo iterators yet. We aren't there. New series. Last episode of the current one will be out on the 1st. New series will be shorter episodes focusing on patterns. Sweet. Are you late? No, you arrived exactly when you meant to. It's almost 11. So I don't know how much longer we'll be going, but lookup table, recursion loop, which one? We're not going to use a lookup table. We're not going to do a lookup table because that doesn't help us. Terrible backronym might be software patterns and coding excellence for space. You would go for a simple loop. Yeah. I mean, people will be able to recognize this, I think. Now we got to use a variable, right? We either have to use a mutable variable or we have to fold. Can we do... Why is product mad at me? Because I didn't specify my integers. Item is U32 here. Product has range. Value of type unit cannot be made. Oh, because I'm returning this. Forgetting my... Right, and then we need to specify what type to put this into. We'll put it into a usize. Does usize count, or do we have to say U64? Value of usize cannot be made by multiplying all elements from a U32. Really? I guess technically usize could be like a U16, right? So U64 doesn't work either. That's really interesting, isn't it? It only implements products for its own type. All right, anyway. Let's do print line result. Both might be useful. It's possible. Oh, right. Turns out anything that starts with 0 is 0, right? That's it. That's not the right thing. All right, factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right? I'm not, yeah, 120. That's what I expected. What does product do? Thought it multiplied everything. Don't use it all that often. Multiplying all the elements. Oh, because I'm not including 5. Because I'm not including 5. The joys of streaming. I get to make all my software interview errors. Sorry, you're a bit behind. Oh, sorry. I let the scroll back hit it. Yeah, 1 equal dot equals 5. Yeah, range inclusive. Sorry, you're a bit behind. Yes, essentially, as you started with Rust Up, in most documentation tutorials, we're just pointing out commands to run through the terminal. A bit later, you tried the Z editor, which does not have a run button, but you were not afraid to use the terminal anymore, and that kind of sealed the deal. Sweet. So you basically like got to warm up to it and then spent some time in the terminal. That's cool. I can't remember the last time I had to calculate factorial. How high do we have to go for this to matter? We don't have to go very high, right? We have to go very high. Okay, factorial's not going to work. Yeah. What else could we do that just takes a long time? That's just a computation. Is this? This isn't. Oh, that's really funny though. What would do just a speed up? I might have to come up with this example later. There we go. How high can we go? Can we go U 64 max? We just count to U64 max. Is that good enough? That feels so silly. Okay, maybe not U64 max. Just counting does it. Perfect. A naive Fibonacci implementation. I mean, I'm not really looking for the like algorithm per se. I'm just looking to be like, hey, run in release mode because it's significantly faster. I think we have to do a for loop. I think we have to because like U32 max. Technically might not exist. That's incredible. Anyway, that's not doing assignment, so that's why it's so fast. But that's just so funny. I think we have to go with something silly like the for loop. We could do something like Fibonacci or whatever, but I'm just trying to get the speed difference. Like I don't want to force somebody to like understand, I don't know, the Fibonacci sequence even. And this might actually introduce them to defining variables, which is cool. I mean, I don't want to get into like benchmarking or anything, so doing anything with floats can be really expensive. I think the counting is fine. Just the count and set and count and set and count and set. It sets me up to like have to answer, why is that take time, Chris? But I think I'm okay with that. I think that the setting a variable U32 max times and being like, it takes a while, run in release mode and it takes less time, drives the point home that I want to drive home. I think anything more complicated starts to get into like, well, anything less complicated starts to get into how much is the Rust compiler going to just assume about the program and output a number. And anything more complicated starts to get into the details of whatever algorithm we choose. So I think counting meets people where they are, where you don't need to know. Like theoretically, somebody could be like a JavaScript developer writing Rust for the first time. They get here and they're like, I don't know what Fibonacci is. I never had to learn that. So now they have to learn Fibonacci and the performance profile. I'd rather just give them a program that counts. Cargo Toml is really not that interesting for this. Maybe we put this up first because it's so much smaller. Right. Like we have main up here. So let me start with this, and then we move the heading for source main here. Yada yada. Is I was going to call it a package manifest, and then I stopped myself and was like, is package manifest really what I want to call a cargo toml? It is the package manifest. That's the right word for it. When you were a kid trying to learn programming, if the examples were too simple, it made me feel, what's the point in learning this language? How do you actually do something? Yeah, this will be quite literally the second piece of code, theoretically, that somebody would ever have seen. Right? I think this is number one. So assuming they haven't seen Rust before, but they know another language. We've got cargo new, and we've got the first piece of code. This is like hello world. I didn't really spend time explaining it. You're expected to know what functions are. You're expected to know that things can print out. You're expected to know that functions execute and that they're whatever, right? This is so common in all languages that I just kind of like expect you to have known what a hello world was. This is the first piece of code that they see beyond that. It introduces variables, ranges, loops, and formatting values. So there is a decent amount of concepts here that are just like, and here's a bunch of stuff, right? Like U32 : max is going to be weird syntax for somebody. 0 U32 max is the next thing they have to contend with. Let mute result. They don't know what that means yet. So I think chewing on this as a simple example is fine. As we move forward, the examples should get more realistic. So for example, there's a whole set of chapters that we're going to write for all of these topics down here, right? And when we talk about ownership in these chapters, having realistic examples or full examples is going to be much more prominent. Specifically because I want to motivate why these features exist rather than just the fact that they do exist, right? Yeah. What are we at right now? 14 pages? Effectively just writing a book at this point. Where are we? Here we are. Release mode. Done with that. Rust is an expression-based language. Is that the next thing? I think that's the next thing. Generics and traits probably get their own here. How to read documentation, TBD. We probably actually don't need to cover this cargo toml since we just already saw it. We will cover like using dependencies, but I think this is going to end up being just the error handling section. Right, here's error handling. And in error handling, we're going to have a using dependencies. Phone's going off again. Yada, yada, yada. Running out of space in my email address. Structs and enums. This is basically going to be like sum types and sum and product types in a trench coat. Right? This like sum and product types is really what I want to say here. But nobody's going to know that vocabulary, and using it would kind of scare people off. So really, we're going to talk about structs and enums here and how enums can carry data. Data is owned by one variable. Let's do that after structs and enums. I think we want to cover structs and enums right here. I think that's the next thing we want to do. We've literally just seen how to deal with numbers, so that's not really an issue anymore. They haven't learned about strings or string slices or anything like that, so we won't use those. We'll use numbers and whatever. We have to get to ownership before we can use those. This is the ownership section, or sorry, that's the expression. This is the ownership section. This is going to be like pattern matching of some kind. Do we call it? I don't know if we put macros here. Maybe we get rid of macros. And then probably a review of if this matches with the other stuff. So ownership, generics, traits, iterators. Do we have iterators up here? We should if we don't. Iterators needs to be up here. Where's generics? Generics, traits. Iterators kind of always comes after generics and traits. Error handling we have, control flow we kind of have, pattern matching. Testing is going to get its own section, but maybe we want to talk about testing, documentation. I don't know. I feel like most people are going to skip the documentation section, but maybe we use it instead. Probably don't talk about patterns like the builder pattern. That's pretty much it. So we've got documentation and testing down here. This is going to be like how to build a library. Or not how to build a library, but like library stuff. Iterators, macros. I think we mentioned derive macros here, but we kind of skip over macros overall. Like we're not going to get too deep into macros. How to read documentation. Is that... Probably a quick mention of this, but not particularly in that position. So where are we? We are at a cool 14 pages. Why Rust, Introduction to Rust, Rust Playground, Installing Rust, Cargo, Community Subcommands. Community Subcommands is a subheading of Cargo. That's 2. This is 3. Rust Analyzer. And then we get into the Rust Quick Start. This is like the section that needs to take under half an hour, really under 20 minutes, because we've already covered 5 minutes plus for installing. Creating new Rust project, some stuff about that, some structs and enums are kind of stuck in that heading. Rust is an expression-based language. Data is owned by one variable. That's ownership. Error handling, so option and result. Pattern matching. Yes, destructuring and stuff like that. We'll mention generics and traits flows into iterators. I feel like we have to talk about iterators, so we have to talk about generics and traits. Documentation and testing are kind of like, how do you do this in a team environment? How do you write things such that others can use them and that the code is maintainable? So I think that's important. So we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 headings. That's about what we were aiming for. So it's like 2 minutes per heading. Gonna have to watch the stream from the start later. I think we wrote like 5 or 6 pages at this point of just like Rust, like intro stuff. It's all intro, so like you know everything that we wrote today. I forget what else we covered earlier. Let's see, 11:10. I think that's a good place to end it for today, actually. I'll probably write some more. Planning to stream again tomorrow morning. Probably switch it up a little bit, maybe do some Bevy stuff instead of content stuff. That 2D visibility demo is just screaming for me to finish it. That's do we even have that up here? No. That is GitHub Rust Adventure active. Rust Adventure active 0.17 Bevy examples. This thing. This is a Bevy program that calculates a 2D visibility mesh by ray tracing intersections. There are 2 problems with this that we need to solve. One is that if there is a situation in which 2 vertices line up with the player ray, then we end up nixing out the triangle. I think that's an ordering issue. The other issue is what the fuck is up with this rhombus? Why is this rhombus getting hits in the middle of the rhombus? It shouldn't be doing that. But otherwise, this is working out really well. I think that we're going to turn this at some point into, it's not Ape Escape. What's the name of the game? Ape Out. Ape Out is probably the right demo for this. So there's a bunch of walls that are basically this visibility mesh across everything. And as you run around as a gorilla in a 2D environment, all of the areas that are not visible because of the walls get shadowed and have a noise texture applied. So this demo directly translates into this world. And the only thing we need to figure out is how to build a level, which is probably going to be Blender, if I'm being honest. But that's it for today. Thanks everyone for hanging out, and I will see you tomorrow morning for another stream. Have a great rest of your day.